The spanning tree protocol config labs at my blog site have a fairly involved initial state. In this video, I'll give you a few tips and pointers to help you get started quickly in those labs. Let's take a look. These labs are best used with Volume 1, Chapter 10, whether that's in the video or in the book. And in particular, it's two labs that I'm referencing related to that chapter. I've got the usual admonitions about how to best use it. Do it now, explore, and use free play to really get the most out of the lab. And I've got a few comments at the end of this video about how to best do that with these two labs in particular. Here are the names and the URLs for the two labs, and the description to this video should have links to those so you can click them. Now let's talk about that initial config. Here are the interface IDs for your reference. Let me click and get the PCs up there as well. Now in particular, I picked interface IDs with a last number that matches the number of the device on the other end of the link. For instance, ends in 11, PC 11, ends in 21, PC 21. And then on the switches, if you think of them as being numbered 1, 2, 3, and 4, think from dist 1's perspective, connected to switch 2, connected to switch 4, connected to switch 3. That might help you remember the interface IDs. That's not the focus of the lab, just a little bit of perspective on the numbering. By the way, both labs use the same topology and same interface IDs. Then what about VLANs and trunks? Well, it turns out that all the switch-to-switch links use trunking, as signified by these T boxes all around there. And then on the access ports, those are indeed access ports in one VLAN. PCs 11 and 12 are configured on ports assigned to VLAN 10, and the other two PCs are assigned to ports in VLAN 11. The labs may tell you to do things with spanning tree in VLAN 10 or VLAN 11 or both, so watch for that, and that'll impact the traffic flow within each of those VLANs. Then the trickiest part probably is the routing configuration that comes with this lab. If you're reading the books in sequence, you haven't learned how this works yet. But I felt like it was important for routing to work so that all four PCs could ping each other, even the PCs in different VLANs and therefore in different subnets. So to do that, I used a router on a stick configuration. So this router has an IP address in two different subnets, which are connected to the underlying two different VLANs, 10 and 11 in this case. From an IP perspective, layer 3 perspective, you get something more like this, with PCs 11 and 12 in one subnet, 21 and 22 in a second subnet, and router R1 does the routing for those. Now the initial configuration shows you what's going on there. I don't expect you to know it yet, and I'm not teaching it to you right now. But here's what the config looks like that connects all the ideas together. You'll learn about it in, I think it's chapter 17 or 18 in the new edition of the books. All right, that gives you a bit of perspective. When you get into lab, your focus is going to be right here. It's going to be on those four switches and on the links between them and configuring to influence the root switch election and the root port choices on the non-root switches. So focus there, but that hopefully gives you a bit of context. Before I go, here are the labs again. You've got links in the description. Let me click those up. You can type those in just as easily as finding the description. Last bit of advice. You don't have to stop with what the lab says. Supercharge your lab and focus on verification. That's very important, the way Cisco has worded these exam topics. So what do I mean by that? After you configure, predict who's the root switch, who's the root port on each non-root switch, where are the designated ports, which ports forward and which ones block. And not only predict it, then use show commands, show spanning tree commands, to decide if your predictions are indeed correct, and if not, figure out why, to help you fully understand what's going on with spanning tree. All right, so that's your marching order to really get the most out of these labs. And do it for both VLANs, VLAN 10 and 11, especially if the lab asks you to do things to change both VLANs. Thanks for hanging until the end. If you'd rather not do lab now and you'd rather do something else, you should see a couple of videos pop up here as suggested next videos. Take a look at those or do the usual YouTube-y things. Thanks for hanging out. Later.